All right, welcome back. Very exciting day today because we are starting our brand new BCBA practice exam. So this will be practice exam 4. You know the drill. We're going to go through a set of questions together and break them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out BCBAstudy.com. We offer 3 full practice exams, our task list study guide, and our combo pack. If you purchase the practice exams or the combo pack, you will receive the 4th exam when it is done. We're still creating it, but we are just starting it now, explanations, just so you can get a jump ahead on your studies. As always, questions, comments, please let us know. Work hard, study hard. Let's get to our questions. Question 1. On a trip last year to Las Vegas, you won $300 playing the slot machines. Went back this year, spent $500, did not win anything. You vow to never play slot machines again. What changed your behavior? Pretty simple, straightforward behavior question, right? So we're looking at consequences because consequences change future behavior. And we know there is a consequence involved because our behavior is changed in the future. Before, you would spend money on slot machines, and now you say you're never going to play them again. So in order to determine what changed your behavior, we need to look at what happened differently when you played the slot machine. The first time you played the slot machines and you won. So positive reinforcement, put money in, play the slot, win $300. This time around, you went back, put money in, nothing happened. You didn't receive reinforcement. Reinforcement was withheld. And that's the key to this question. Be very careful about extinction versus punishment. Remember, they're not the same thing. So you got to be very careful with, are we adding something or taking something away? Or are we just simply withholding something? In this case, reinforcement is simply being withheld, right? Nothing was added or taken away for the response in response to you spending the $500, okay? You just didn't win anything. We're not talking necessarily about losing the money. We're talking about winning, okay? Because that's what's maintaining this behavior. And since the consequence was not winning anything, reinforcement was withheld. What changed your behavior? Well, extinction. Your behavior of spending money was putting on extinction because now you spent the money, nothing happened. Question 2. A professional chef is evaluating some of his recipes. He wants to make changes for the upcoming fall menu. He decides he wants to change his tomato soup to pumpkin soup with pumpkin seeds. He can't decide how many pumpkin seeds he wants to put on top. What type of analysis might help him? These type of questions give people trouble. They're wordy, they're very applied, and they have to do with things other than what we typically deal with in our field, right? Here we're talking about a chef evaluating recipes. And what exactly does he want to do? Because we're looking for the analysis that might help him. Well, you have to ask yourself, help him do what? Well, he wants to decide how many pumpkin seeds to put on top. And that's the key giveaway here. You should immediately start thinking of certain terms, right? So we know he wants to make changes. He knows he's going to make a pumpkin soup, right? So if we consider that our quote-unquote intervention, the pumpkin soup, we have our intervention set. So he's not choosing the intervention, right? So he's not doing a component analysis or a comparative analysis. A component analysis compares multiple interventions, right? They're not part of a package. We're just comparing interventions. A comparative analysis compares multiple interventions that aren't part of a package. A component analysis looks at the whole package and compares the interventions within the package, right? We already chose our intervention, or in this case, our pumpkin soup. So now we're asking ourselves, well, how many of whatever our intervention is? In this case, pumpkin seeds. How many of our pumpkin seeds do we need? And if we're going to ask ourselves the dosage, essentially, of the intervention, we're going to use a parametric analysis. Not a task analysis. He's not writing down a recipe. He's not going through the steps in the recipe. He's asking himself, my intervention is pumpkin soup with these pumpkin seeds added. How many pumpkin seeds do I need? What is the dosage? The dosage, in this case, is going to be evaluated using parametric analysis. If we're going to use it in, let's say, behavioral terms, if I run a component analysis for a package, and my package includes a differential reinforcement procedure and a punishment procedure, and I determine differential reinforcement is what is changing the behavior, I'm then going to use a parametric analysis to, let's say, determine how much reinforcement I need to give, or what is the schedule, right? Remember, the component and the comparative is looking at the medicine, and the parametric is looking about the amount, right? The amount or the dosage you need. In this case, we have our intervention, pumpkin soup with pumpkin seeds, right? We now need to do a parametric analysis to see how much of that intervention, quote unquote, we need. 3. John supervises a team of technicians who complete a specific 7-step sequence to gain access into the main office building. The sequence was updated to include 2 extra steps following the 3rd step. What type of chaining would be the most efficient to use to teach the technicians the new step? Okay. Dead giveaway in the question to begin with, right? They're asking a very specific type of intervention, and that's going to be chaining. Okay? Identifying these type of words and terms in our questions starts to lead you down the right path, okay? Because now you can focus. Now you're focused on chaining. Forward chaining, backward chaining, total task chaining. You're just asking yourself, what type of chaining is going to be most efficient to use? Well, let's evaluate, right? He has a team of technicians, a 7-step sequence, okay? And what is he changing? Well, he's adding 2 extra steps following the 3rd step. Are the other steps changing? They're not. As far as we know, they're not. And that's a key. We're only using the information given, right? And they don't say anything about the other steps changing. So the technicians already know the other steps. We're just adding 2 steps in there. Do we need to reteach the whole chain? Well, no. If he's adding 2 following the 3rd step, they already know steps 1, 2, and 3, and then whatever comes after the new steps. All we need to do is teach the specific steps he's adding. In other words, let's just teach the total chain with the 2 added steps. Okay? We don't have to go through the whole process of forward and backward chaining a sequence they already know. So if I've got the 7-step sequence, I'm making it a 9, you might as well just use a total task chaining strategy to teach the whole sequence. You're not going to behavior chain interrupt, okay? Because behavior chain interrupt, you're trying to evoke new behaviors. In this case, you've got a very specific set of steps you want to teach. So just use total task chaining, teach all the steps, save yourself a lot of time and headache. The client is playing Zynga with his technician. Another client walks in the room and asks if he can join, but says he does not know how to play. First client shows him the different pieces and where to put them. Second client watches and performs the necessary actions. First client is engaging in what? Half the battle when you have multiple people in a question is figuring out whose behavior we're looking at. In this case, we're looking at first client. So let's focus on the first client. So the client is playing Zynga. First client is playing Zynga. Another client walks in the room and asks if he can join, but doesn't know how to play. So the first client shows him the different pieces and where to put them. The second client watches and performs the necessary actions. So if we look at our answer choices, modeling, imitation, shaping, functional communication training. Is the first client engaging in functional communication training? Is he teaching the other client how to communicate? No, he's teaching him to play Zynga. Is the first client shaping the second client's behavior? He's not. There's not even a mention of reinforcement going on here. There's no approximations. So either the first client has to be modeling or imitating. And the first client is showing the second client what to do. The second client is watching and then engaging in those behaviors. So the first client's modeling, second client is imitating. So the first client is engaging in modeling. 5, you work in a large group home as a contracted BCBA. You are asked to create a task analysis for cleaning up after lunch. You create one task analysis and implement your program immediately using forward chaining for all residents. What is the most likely outcome? Difficult question. Okay. The more you study, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at identifying the hints they give you in these ethical questions. Okay. Because there's always some key words that are going to kind of start ringing alarms in your head the more you prepare. In this case, when I look at it, okay, because we're looking for the most likely outcome. And notice we're doing all our work in the question. That's where you need to spend your time. Spend your time in the question. We're not reading the question and then jumping to the answer choices, going back and forth. Do all your work in the question. It's going to make your life a lot easier. We're looking for outcomes here, right? So I know I'm working in a large group home. I'm asked to create a task analysis for cleaning up after lunch. I create one task analysis, implement my program immediately for all residents. Now, immediately, what are you thinking? As a good BCBA, what do we need to be doing? We need to be individualizing our programs, right? Two, creating a task analysis and implementing it immediately. Do we have baseline? Do assessments? What is going on here? And let's just assume, okay, we did all that. Still, the problem becomes is we have a single task analysis for this entire group home, so all residents. Do we think there are good odds that our single task analysis for cleaning up after lunch, which can be fairly complex depending on what we're doing, is going to be good for all residents? My guess would be no. So let's look at our answer choices. A, your client will successfully clean up after lunch. Okay. Maybe. If we are very lucky, we will be successful in this group home with one task analysis. Okay. So maybe A, but do we have a better answer? We're looking for the most likely outcome. B, your task analysis will include all steps needed for each resident. Do we think by just creating one task analysis without what seems like an observation of everybody, we're going to include all steps needed? Probably not, right? Think about a hand washing TA, and if you've ever dealt with multiple clients, that can look very different client to client, right? C, your task analysis will be missing steps for some residents. That is much more likely than being just successful off the bat. Okay. It's hard enough to create a good task analysis for a single person. Now we're going to create one for this entire home and just expect it to work. It's unlikely. What's a lot more likely is it's going to be missing steps for residents. It's not individualized. D, because we want to read all our answer choices, you will need to use backwards chaining instead for all residents. Still doesn't solve the core problem, which is we have one analysis for multiple people. Okay. So again, it's a great point because is forward chaining going to be best? Is backwards chaining? Not sure. We need to go through each individual, assess them individually, and then create something that's going to work for each person. So the most likely outcome is we're going to be missing some stuff for certain residents. 6, Mr. Patterson greets all of his students in the morning. Some students receive a handshake. Some students receive a smile. Some students receive a fist bump. These responses represent a what? Easy question, maybe a 2 or 3. And you have to remember, a lot of the questions on the exam are easy. Key when you get easy questions is you don't overthink it. Trust your preparation. Pick an answer. Move on. So let's do that here, right? What do we know? Well, we know we have 3 different responses: handshake, smile, fist bump, all serving the same function of greeting students, all evoked by the same stimuli. Students, making them what? Are these responses a reinforcer? Well, not really sure, right? But I would say no, because we're talking about responses and consequences. Are they a response class? Sure. All 3 are similar functions, same stimuli, different topographies, but it doesn't matter. They all fit into one single response class. They're not stimuli, so they can't be a stimulus class or stimulus. So they need to be a response class. Very straightforward, right? We're not messing around with easy questions, okay? Doesn't mean we're rushing, but it doesn't mean we're sitting here overthinking every single question on the exam. When you get an easy one, if you're prepared, answer it, move on. And if you really are worried, just flag it, come back to it, right? 7, partial interval recording will often overestimate the total blank of behavior when we have our discontinuous measurements, right? Partial interval, all interval, momentary time sampling. They don't paint a complete picture of what is happening with the behavior. We're typically overestimating or underestimating something. Because if you think about it, if we're using interval recording, let's say we have a 1-minute interval, okay, 10 of them. Each interval, for partial interval, the behavior only has to happen for a single second, right? So if that behavior happens 1 second out of the 1-minute interval, it counts. So thinking along those lines, what are we overestimating? I look at my data, I see 5 responses for 5 1-minute intervals. It might appear that this behavior is happening for 5 minutes, when in reality, it might have happened 5 seconds. So what are we overestimating here? Are we overestimating rate? Well, no, because partial interval often underestimates total frequency. So if we underestimate total frequency, we're not going to be overestimating rate. We're going to be overestimating duration. Again, think about that from a conceptual standpoint. If I have a 1 minute interval, the behavior happens for a single second, my data sheet still indicates that behavior happened for that whole time, right? It's still indicating that the duration is 1 minute. That's just the nature of discontinuous measurement. It's why it has its flaws. Now, it has its place, but you can't discredit what goes along with those strengths and the weaknesses, right? So partial recording will often overestimate the total duration of behavior. A new behavior analyst is taking an OBM class to expand her competencies into the business world. For an assignment, she must collect data on how late technicians are to their sessions. The analyst tells her supervisee to collect the data for her. What ethical code does this violate? Is this okay? Should you, as a behavior analyst, tell your supervisees to do your schoolwork for you? Force them to get you coffee? Go let your dog out? Can you do those things? Are those part of your duties and their duties? No. Okay. The ethical code protects against these things. We don't exploit our supervisees, our technicians, our workers. Okay. So in this case, we have an behavior analyst or a behavior analyst who tells her supervisee to collect data for a homework assignment. Okay. That doesn't seem right. So what ethical code does she violate? A, none. This is not unethical. We just determined it is. So we have B, multiple relationships. Are we engaged in a multiple relationship here? Well, multiple relationship is typically dual relationships, so professional and personal overlap. This can be a very professional relationship still, right? Maybe they're not friends at all. It's still very professional, so it's not really engaging in a multiple relationship, but is it exploitative? Well, it is. This behavior analyst is exercising their power and their control and their position to have a supervisee do an assignment for her. It's just not acceptable. So this is an exploitative relationship. And what about non-harassment? Well, the behavior analyst doesn't seem to be harassing them. It's not like she's forcing, like bugging them, right? Asking them over and over again. She's simply just saying, go collect data for me, right? There's no harassment going on necessarily, but she is exploiting her. So what ethical code does it violate is, well, exploitative relationships, straight from the ethical code. A motivational speaker is giving a talk to a group of college students. The speaker says, I want everyone to stand up. Crowd stands. The crowd behavior represents what? Now, think about our verbal behavior. Speakers, we have listeners. So we have speaker skills, speaker language, and listener skills, listener language. Listener skills, a good way to remember it, is essentially receptive skills, right? Receptive instructions. So in this case, whose behavior are we looking at? We're looking at the crowds. What is the crowd doing? Well, they were responding to the speaker saying, I want everyone to stand up, and the crowd stands. So we would say, well, this is a great job of listening to receptive instructions. In other words, they're demonstrating listener skills. So you can see if we just do all our work in the question, we're going to get the answer most of the time, right? Sometimes you can't predict it because it's going to be a very blunt, straightforward question, right? Like we're going to see in 10. But in this case, you can easily predict what the answer might be. So A, is it an interverbal? Well, it's not. It's not like the speaker said, I want everyone to stand up, and the listener responded with, okay, something like that. That would be more of an interverbal. Not the case here. Is it expressive language? Well, you got to be careful. Who are we talking about here? Talking about the crowd. Crowd is not engaging in any expressive language. The crowd is exercising their listener skills or their receptive skills, their receptive instructions. I want everyone to stand up. Crowd stands. Speaker behavior would be the motivational speaker. And then finally, of the following, a multiple baseline is not recommended to evaluate what? Finish on an easy one. Okay, what do we do with easy questions? Think about them, trust our preparation, answer it, move on. So let's do that. Multiple baseline recommended to evaluate what? Multiple settings. Absolutely. Multiple interventions. No. Multiple participants. Yes. Multiple behaviors. Yes. So what don't we evaluate is multiple interventions, right? And the key here is recognizing and reading slowly enough to know it's not recommended. Multiple settings, right? Home, clinic, school. Multiple participants, John, James, Jerry. Multiple behaviors, elopement, aggression, screaming. Typically, we're going to have one IV across all these different settings, participants, and behaviors. That's why we're using a multiple baseline. So that's it for today. That's 1 through 10. Next Friday, we're going to continue BCBA Exam 4. Make sure you're checking out BCBAstudy.com for our first 3 practice exams, our task study guide, and our combo pack. As always, work hard, study hard. I'll see you soon.